Welcome to a new video from the Circuit Coder YouTube channel. Have you ever wanted to make an amazing clicker game? Something like this? Well, if you do, then let's start with this tutorial. This is very easy to follow and it looks amazing. So make sure to stick until the end. So let's get scratching. So we will start by going into Scratch, and next we're going to go to our stuff. One cool trick is that instead of clicking here into my stuff, you can simply click into this file icon and you can quickly access your stuff. Now then, we just create a new project, of course, and we wait for it to load. Now, we're making a clicker game, so of course we'll name it Clicker Game. You can give it any name that you want. Now, where we can use the Scratch sprite for our clicker, but in this case I like more Gobo, so I'm going to use it. But you can use any sprite that you want. So we'll simply choose a sprite, type in here Gobo, and here we go. We simply click him, and we take away Scratch Cat. Now we simply go to 0 and 0. Now we'll start by dragging a green flag click block in the canvas. Next, we will create a variable and name it score for all sprites. Now we simply click on OK, and here we have our variable. So, of course, this will count our score. Next, we simply set our variable to 0 after the green flag clicked, and we change this to score. Next, we go to events, when this sprite clicked, and change my variable by 1. Now, at this point, we have got the basis for our game, and we can see that whenever we click Gobo, the score should change by 1. Now, let's go back into the editor. And I think that now I'm going to add a backdrop to add more detail to this game. So we simply choose a backdrop and we select patterns, and I think I'm going to use the erase pattern. So we simply click on it, and here we go. It looks better now. So now we can simply click Gobo and the score increases. Of course, this does look a bit simple, so we are going to add maybe some animation to it. So going back into the canvas, we will add a forever block, and next we will add a set size block. And now, of course, this will set the size to 100 forever, but what we want here is for it to change the size. Now, what we're going to do now is that this, when we click the sprite, it will change the size by 10. And now we can see Gobo increase its size whenever we click it. I can go into full screen, and you can see how its size increases. Now, this doesn't feel really smooth, so we're going to change that. We're going to go into the operators, we add a divide block, and then we add the subtract block. Next, we will add 100 here. So how this block works is that first we will add the size here, and now here we will add the size that we want the sprite to be set to. And next, in this other part, we will add in the speed in which we want it to get at that size. So, for example, if Gobo was at a size of 200 and we put 2 here, then it would slowly go back to the 100. Depending on how high the number is, the longer it will take. So, for example, if it is 15, then it will take much longer. In this case, I'm going to leave it at 2 and leave it right here. Now, Here is something that you should be aware of. Here I accidentally dragged in a set size block. Make sure that you use a change size by block or else this won't work. So I'll simply remove this set size too. Oh no! Wait, let's stop the project so that Google doesn't grow too much, and we drag this in. Now we can simply click the green flag again. And did you see that? Gogo now slowly returns to its original position. And actually we can see that if we click a lot, then suddenly Gogo can grow more. So for example, we can change the size by more, for example by 30. And then if we click very quickly, we can see Gogo grow a lot and then slowly return to its original position. I'm going to leave it at 10 because that way it looks smoother. And here I'm going to set its size to 200. This way he looks nicer. And here maybe to 20. Yeah, that's right. Remember that you can play around with these values to whatever you like. Now, the next thing that we have to do is that I think that on some clickers you have noticed that +1 icons appear whenever you click on a sprite. That also adds more detail to it, so let's do that. Now, we are going to go into the Costumes tab, and we're going to paint the costume. Now we simply create text, and we make it black, or whatever color you like. And then here we can just choose a font. In this case, I think I'm going to use the Pixel font. And now here we write in +1. And let's forget to use under. Now, of course, we can see our Gogo disappear. And there's pretty much no sense on clicking the +1 icon. But I am going to show you what we're going to do with this costume right now. We simply go back to the Gogo costume. Here we have Gogo back. And we go back into the code. Now, we are going to create a clone each time that the sprite is clicked. So this clone, what it's going to do is that it's going to turn into the +1 and it's going to show. Now, cloning is basically when a sprite creates another copy of itself. So for example, if I wanted to have 2 Gogos here, instead of duplicating a sprite here, or for example 3 Gogos, yes, I could duplicate these sprites. But what if I wanted 300 Gogos? That would be impossible. So that is what clones exist for. So we'll simply delete these extra Gogos, center our Gogo again, and now we're going to go to the control category. Next, we simply scroll down and find the create clone of myself block, and we drag it here. Now when I start as a clone, let's make it switch its costume to the costume 1. Let's name it +1 to make it easier to identify. We switch back to Gogo, and here we make sure to switch the costume to Gogo, or the sprite that you're using. So now, when we start this project, make sure to select a go to front layer for the clone. And yes, here we can see a +1 clone appear, but there's a problem. If we click this clone, can you see how more clones appear? And of course we don't want that. So we're going to click the green flag to delete all those extra clones. And now we're going to create a new variable. So we're going to name it clone, and we are going to make it for the sprite only. I like to add an underscore on each for this sprite only variable so that we can identify if it's for the sprite only. Next, we simply click on OK, and here we have our variable. Now, if you don't know, each clone will be a separate sprite. So the one I started as a clone would pretty much be the green flag clicked. But as it turns out, since each clone is like the sprite, it shares all of the code with the sprite except the one green flag click blocks. For example, the blocks that trigger, like when this sprite clicked, are shared by the clone, and we do not want the clone to be activated by those blocks. So what we're going to do is to use this variable. But how does this work? Well, as it turns out, since a clone is a copy of another sprite, when we select for this sprite only, it's also for this clone only. So for example, if we set the original sprite variable to 0 and then we set the clone variable to 1, then what this will do is that basically it will have its own variable. So the sprite variable would be 0 and the clone's 1, and they can't change each other. So when working with clones, this can be useful to, for example, give a clone one ID and then make each clone do different things. But I'm going to go over that in another video or on another tutorial. Or maybe later, who knows. Now, we're going to go back to here and we simply drag here the clone and here we'll set it to 0 or false. In this case, I'm going to use 0 because 0 is basically false. Next, when the clone starts, the first thing it will do is to set its clone to 1. This will tell us that the clone is, well, a clone. Now, we simply add an if block from the events category, control category, and then we simply drag it into the sprite click block script. Now, we simply add an operator, which will be the equal. And now, if it equals 0, if clone equals 0, this will mean that it is a sprite, so it will change the score. Now, let's create this, and let's move this +1 over here, and we can see how we click this, and nothing happens. This is perfectly what we want. Now, I think that you're going to meet this problem, and it is that Scratch can only have 300 clones at a time. So, if we suddenly got to 300 clones, then we couldn't create more. So, for example, here I have got a Chrome extension which is Scratch Add-ons, and it lets me look at the clones that a project has. So, if we quickly get to 300 clones, now, for example, here we have already gotten to the 300 clones and we cannot create any more clones. So, of course, this is a problem. So, for example, if I move global, we can't see any more clones popping up. So, to avoid this, we have to get the clones to delete themselves after they appear. So, now we are going to go into the when I started as a clone script. And then here, we simply drag in at delete this clone. Let's click the green flag to delete all the extra clones. But the problem here is that the clone deletes itself instantly. So we simply add a wait block. And we can see it appear for 1 second before disappearing. So this can be something that we might want, but something that you may notice is that when we click a lot, so for example here I'm waiting and you can see how the clones start overlapping and then there are a lot of them stacked up and they are all in the same position and it doesn't look that nice if we do that. So I'll quickly recenter Gogo after pulling him to another spot accidentally, and we're going to make them appear at random positions. So we simply change the X, so remember to leave this at the start. And now we simply add a pick random block. And then we pick -20 to 20 and we do the same here. -20 and 20. Now here we can see the ones spawning at different positions. You can also change this to whatever value you want. In this case, maybe I'm going to set it to 100. See, this way it looks much better. Now, what we want now is that it doesn't look that nice when they suddenly disappear all of a sudden. So, I think that we're going to add an animation for it. So, remember this block? Well, it can apply for pretty much anything. So, we can use this instead of the size to use it for the ghost effect. What this ghost effect does is that when the higher it is, the more transparent the sprite is. So for example, if I set to 50, then we can see the background for it, and if we set to 100, then we fully cannot see the sprite, even though it is still there. Now, one useful thing about this is that the touching mouse pointer still works when it is with the ghost effect. This can sometimes help with making hitboxes, but I'm going to show that in another video. Now let's reset the ghost effect back to 0, and as we can see, we don't have any reporters for the ghost effect, so we're simply going to create our own. So we go to the variables, we make a variable for this sprite only again, and we name it ghost effect underscore. Now we simply click on OK, and then we're going to set the ghost effect to 0. Now, since each clone keeps the variables, we will not need to set the ghost effect to 0 here, because since the sprite already has it, then the clone will also have it. Next, we will add another when I start as a clone block, a forever loop, and then we drag in here the set ghost effect, and we drag here the ghost effect block. Now, of course, this won't do anything yet, but you'll see. Now, next we set the the ghost effect variable, and then we simply copy the script, but we change the size for the ghost effect, and then we are going to set it to 100. So, what it will do is that it will make the sprite, the clone, slowly disappear. And wait, remember to add the change. This always happens, but yeah, make sure to add this to change. If you don't add the change block, then this won't work. And select the ghost effect variable. And we are going to set this to 20, say, so that the effect is slower. See? Whoa, this is already looking nice, right? Now, next is score variable does look a bit bad, doesn't it? So we're going to change that variable to. But this is getting quite long, so we will have to leave that for another video. If you like this video and want a part 2, make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel, give this video a like, and hit the little bell. Goodbye.